1 minute.
This is just a handout tonight. I don't remember seeing anything on the agenda tonight dealing with.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started and call to order the October 22nd regular meeting of the Waxhaw Board of Commissioners. If you would, please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, we have one item to add to the agenda. It would be new business, item H1, Boards and Commission onboarding. Clerk Schuler, do you have anything else that's come your way? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public comments. Mr. Jim King wants to talk about the Waxhaw Gray Byram intersection.
I appreciate
Jim.
I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to me. I have concerns not with the stoplight. I don't have a turn with the turn lane, but I do have a problem with the sidewalk and the multi-purpose path that's proposed, which I hope you guys maybe missed. You got a multi-purpose path which is going to be 10 foot wide. That means that you're going to have additional expense because you're going to have to buy a right-of-way. You're going to build things that are not used, and no one seems to know who or what is going to maintain that. Now, I called the city, and the city says the state's going to maintain it if it's built. I called the state, and the state says absolutely not. It is a city problem. If the city builds it, the city got to maintain it. They'll have to have an agreement. The other thing, I went from my driveway down Waxhaw Marvin Road, and on the left-hand side coming toward Waxhaw, which they call the east side, it is 2,200 feet on the left side of the road before there's a first speck of sidewalk. There's a 15-foot sidewalk at Curitan, about 15 foot at Prescott, and about 3 feet at Quillen on Waxhaw Marvin Road. Then you're like 3.5 miles from my driveway, a little bit over, before there's any other sidewalks on the left-hand side of the road. But yet, and then on the right-hand side of the road, which is where I live and where you guys are proposing to put the multi-purpose path, is 2.6 miles from my driveway to where the sidewalk starts on Helms Road on the right. There's about 1,600 feet, roughly, of sidewalk in front of Anklin Forest and the Oaks and the church, but there's no other connectivity anywhere. Okay. That approximately means that if the multi-purpose path is put on my side of the road, then are we going to tear up over a mile of sidewalk? Because that's what you're talking about. You're talking about sidewalk on the left side of the road and multi-purpose on the right. So what little sidewalk you have, which has no connectivity, you're going to tear up and put a multi-purpose path. My property is adjacent to the city of Marvin, so chances are pretty good that the multi-purpose path and sidewalk is not going to go much beyond my property. My property is also in the county, so it's not even, so now you're proposing to building a multi-purpose path for a limited distance that's not even in the city limits of Waxhaw. Wouldn't it make more sense to actually spend your dollars on something you can connect to? For instance, you could put a sidewalk maybe a short distance in front of the park. At least it would connect with something. Where's the sidewalk, in y'all's town? From Gray Byram Road to your city limits on my side of the road is about 1,500 feet. And there's
About 10 seconds.
Okay, 2 parcels of land left there that you can't connect to. That land is posted. My other big problem is redrawn when this was proposed. There's all kinds of discrepancies in it. What am I going to do when you got 400 or 500 foot of multi-purpose paths that nobody can use and doesn't have access to? Because you're going to have to buy a right-of-way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up is presentation, introduction to the Waxhaw Police Foundation from the chairman of the Waxhaw Police Foundation, Earl Cook.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, and staff. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to introduce you to the Waxhaw Police Foundation, and that's what it is. It's an introduction. We do have two members of the board here, Miss Denise Truesdale back here, and Mr. Don Fisher. Now, the Police Foundation, a lot of people wonder what it is, and the word foundation really strikes them as something. But the best way for me to introduce this is to show you a video. It's a video about the Charlotte Police Foundation. Right up front, we are not Charlotte, but we do have a very similar goal. We are out to support the police by community action and voluntary representation. So with that, in just a second, you're going to see a video. It should be coming up, and then I'll do some explanation and answer your questions. So I see the mouse is clicking. It will be just a second. Here we go. So your attention to the screens, it's preview of coming attraction.
It's so important that we support our police officers, particularly in this environment. They put their lives on the line for us. They work hard, they work long hours, and they need our support. You want to see a result of something you're doing. And this is something that can see a result. It's very positive, and the funding that comes in and the support we get is not going to return void.
We're the people behind the badge. Whatever the need is, we're there for them. Chapter and E.M. Boyan.
Biggest thing that we did from a fundraising perspective is our lunch.
But for that support, we may not be able to do some of the things that we've been able to do.
That is what the foundation should be doing. Stepping in where the public money is just not there, and really doing good with private donations.
They're going to fill gaps that are needed to make sure our officers are safe, that their well-being is taken care of, and that we can be an effective, efficient organization.
They're out there on the front lines, keeping our community safe, and we need to thank them for that.
They care, they want what's best for our city. They're there to serve and protect us, to make this one of the best communities in the country. But they put their lives on the line every day.
The appreciation that we get back from the police department and what we're doing to try to help them is great.
They're great partners, not only in their time and their money, but also in their support. And, you know, sometimes you need that criticism to say, hey, you know, this is how this looked to us in the community, and it just makes us better.
They're out there supporting us, and we need to support them.
We need more support. Each year, our numbers are growing, but we're gonna grow it even more, so help us.
All right, that's the preview of coming attractions, but it isn't the Charlotte Police Foundation, it's the Waxhaw Police Foundation. And again, the goal is the same, community support of those people that we owe so much to. And we do want to be the people behind the badge. But just a very quick little bit of history. In roughly the last 15 years, the police department has grown at about 1/2 the rate in size and numbers of the town of Waxhaw's population and area. So the police department has a much bigger job today than they had in the past. But although the town has been growing, something else has been growing within the police department, community policing. I've been here for about 16 years, and the things that I have seen about community policing, everyone should be aware of. For example, Waxhaw is among the safest of all the municipalities in the state of North Carolina. Today, there are 2 designated community policing officers. The DARE program that's in the elementary schools. They make presentations to the HOAs at monthly meetings to keep them updated and interact with the community. There are other such things as the Back to School Bash that Miss Denise Truesdale and Vivian Miller got started that partners with the police, and to see community and police working together, that's very gratifying in Waxhaw. There are things such as the Explorers Program, the National Night Out, an animal control officer, and other things that demonstrate that the police department does have a deep connection to the community. And that's what the Waxhaw Police Foundation's about. Now, a couple of very specific points. The WPF, or Waxhaw Police Foundation, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It is neither a part of the Waxhaw Police Department nor of the town of Waxhaw. I really want to emphasize it's a 501c3 nonprofit that is just as independent as any other nonprofit, whether it's the American Red Cross, the Girl Scouts, or the Waxhaw Business Association. It is a purely voluntary entity. And you know, when you think about that, you say, okay, it's a 501c3 nonprofit. What's that mean? It means that we are a legally incorporated nonprofit. We are bound by articles of incorporation and bylaws with oversight from the state of North Carolina and the federal government, specifically oversight from the IRS. Every nonprofit must go through lots of filings and things to make sure that you are following all of the rules. That's what the WPF will be doing. Now, the video, I introduced it as a preview of coming attractions. Well, if there's a preview of coming attractions, there's always a premiere date. Right now, the premiere date is we have set a goal of being able to go live at the end of the first quarter in 2020. that's really kind of ambitious. It is like any new business startup. Before a business has a grand opening or really starts up, there's a lot of administrative things to be taken care of. Those administrative, legal things, we are now in the process of doing. We are just getting started, and that's where we are. But we do want this Board of Commissioners, the town, and the public to know that the Waxhaw Police Foundation is here. This community has a tremendous amount of volunteer and charitable work. When you look at the things that go on, we would simply like to be able to tap into and channel some of that to support the police. So with that, from potential supporters, donors, volunteers, anyone that can help, we will certainly appreciate that help. And here we are. We're new and we're coming, so thank you. And any questions?
So if you have a question, let me raise your hand so I can acknowledge. Mayor Pro Tem.
You introduced two of the members from the foundation. Are there other members who are also on the foundation as well? And who are they?
There are two other present directors. One, required by the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws, is Lieutenant Burton Zill. All police foundations have at least one ex officio member. The other is Mr. James Poole. He couldn't be here tonight. He has quite a significant law enforcement background and is over Bank of America security in Uptown.
And how were the members of the board selected, or how was the process done to put together the members who are on the board?
I really can't tell you because I truly don't know. I can only tell you about myself.
Okay.
I was approached several months ago and asked would I consider serving on the Waxhaw Police Foundation. And I said, yes, I really support the police, and I would do that. Then about 3 months ago, I was asked would I accept the chair, and that's when I truly found out names that others had been asked, and that was the people that I told you, Fisher, Truesdale, and Poole.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Okay. With the foundation, you will be doing fundraisers for the police department, correct?
No,
No.
we will not be doing.
Not for, but for.
I really want to emphasize, we will not be doing fundraisers for the police department. We will be doing fundraisers for the Waxhaw Police Foundation that will support the police department.
Okay.
It's really important that people understand that they're separate. And but those fundraisers are a good way down the road. I really want to emphasize that we are a business startup. We have to find people with skills and those things that we need to get out there. It is a growing, evolving entity.
And with those fundraisers that you will be doing, will that also include looking into grants and things that support foundations such as?
Very much. As a matter of fact, one of the things we have are tapping into the Citizens Police Academy. When you find out there are a lot of people out there with grant writing skills that no one on our board could begin to do. That's the kind of volunteer work that we need. We will need people to write grants. There are state and federal grants that can be applied for. And when we get to the point that we can do that, Commissioner McMillan, we certainly will be. And anyone that has a suggestion, if you know of grant writers or other things, we will need skills like CPAs and things. That's why we're not Charlotte yet.
So you will be looking for people to work with you and the board with the foundation who have these skills moving forward to support it?
Absolutely. As the video demonstrated, there are a lot of people far beyond the board of directors. The board of directors, we're just the tip of the iceberg, that's all.
Commissioner Westlake?
The questions I have really probably should have been directed towards the town manager. I don't know if Matt can answer to these or not. In reference to an email regarding what was sent from the auditor. So I'm assuming that there has been a review of the 501c3 paperwork, and that a request of annual financials, which I understand there's not really anything right now, and that if there was any type of material impact on the town, that it would become a component unit. So has any of that?
It's all been done. I talked to Erskine at 4 o'clock today. He was perturbed that they went around him and didn't call him and ask him for the information, because that had been worked out with the police chief, with the staff, with him. That was an independent financial statement. They've looked at that. They will pull that together. The new CFO will continue to request, just like you do at a PTO, turn your finances in so we can look at it. There is no control aspect whatsoever. The CFO from the county actually made the statement. The county gives money to nonprofits all the time. It's a control and material influence, and we are receiving no influence, and we have no control over them at this point. So Erskine feels it's done and addressed, and is part of the process that one goes through annually. That was straight from him, and he will send us a note on that tomorrow morning.
That'd be great. Okay, that's all I have.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cook, would you be able to come back once you're ready to kick everything off and share with the board, the then seated board, kind of your plans and for the future and things of that nature?
Absolutely. In fact, it will be a pleasure, because I will consider that free marketing. Anytime that the Police Foundation has access to a public microphone, it can only help. And those things that it will take for us administratively and logistically over the next 5 months to truly go live and be a premier, we will come back and certainly bring up our present status and hopefully even some of the goals and plans for the future.
And I'd encourage you to do that with the future board for a couple of different reasons. One of the reasons you put a citizens or a police foundation in place is for transparency and delineation. If you read the material on foundations, the one things people love to do is accuse the police department of favoritism and stuff like that. A foundation and how you manage that and administer that and actually bring forward suggestions for programs really keeps that additional money separate and distinct. And so really encourage you to once you're up and running on a regular basis. I know you love to talk, so this will be quite natural for you. So, right?
I'll be here. I will be here.
Can I make one quick comment? I just want to
Commissioner Lee.
say thank you to you and the other board members for taking on this challenge to support our police department.
We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And it is a challenge, and we need everyone's help.
Okay, Commissioner Burns?
That's what I was going to ask. You're going to have a list of things where people can volunteer opportunities in different areas once you get up and running?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we've only had an organizational meeting trying to list some of those things that we need and to figure out how we would get that out to the public. Right now, it's simply word of mouth, finding people like in the police academy that have that interest, but we may ask to be on the agenda even before we're ready to go live, because that, again, that's a way we can ask, okay?
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Old business, decision on the Howie property initial zoning. RZ 009395. Mr. Jeff Wells, come on down. Now, we did have the public hearing 2 weeks ago. That was a public hearing that was for the benefit of both this board and the planning board. And my understanding is the planning board met last evening, and you're going to share some of that results with us as well.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening. And this is the decision on the Howie property initial zoning, and as the Mayor mentioned, we had the public hearing 2 weeks ago, so I will succinctly move through this just as a quick recap. It is a request that was initiated by the town, and it is for the initial zoning of the Howie parcels that were recently annexed. And the request is to zone the property from Union County's R20 or residential 20 to the town of Waxhaw R1, with the property that totals approximately 991 acres. And then this is the aerial shot of the property highlighted in blue. Has frontage along NC 16. That's where the farming operation that everybody sees every day when you drive by. Down along the southern part, it has frontage along Waxhaw Marvin Road. Significant middle section of the property remains wooded. And then southeast of the property is the downtown proper area. So this is just adjacent to the downtown to the northwest. As I mentioned, the Union County zoning prior to the annexation was R20. What that allowed there was 20,000 square foot single family detached lots, roughly half-acre lots. Also allowed duplexes and mobile homes were the primary uses that would be allowed in that zoning district. For our future land use plan, it is in the intended growth sector. It has a designation of mixed use, the frontage along Highway 16. The remainder of the property has a designation of residential mixed. Mixed use, the designation provides for a mixture of commercial and residential uses in areas along major transportation routes or strategically located to function as the center of a neighborhood. And the designation residential mixed provides for a mixture of housing types set in a walkable neighborhood. Again, the proposed zoning right now is R1. The description of the R1 district is to provide for residential use of land developed in a very low-density pattern, with the principal structure being a single-family detached dwelling. So this is the dimensional requirements, and I would just ask you really to pay attention to the row where it says lot area minimum 100,000 square feet would be the minimum lot area. That equates to approximately 2 1/3 acre. So that would be the minimum lot for this particular zoning district if somebody did wish to subdivide it under this designation. So where we're at, the town annexed the property on September 10th. By state law, we are required to, within 60 days, to establish an initial zoning on a recently annexed area. It is a fairly common practice in some municipalities to zone a property to its lowest density district in order to preserve it for future considerations. A local example, the closest neighbor we have that has a history of doing that is Matthews. And so we're taking that initiative there from Matthews. We do feel as staff that the initial zoning to R1 right now is the board's best option. We all know how important that this property is. We all know how vital it is in its location adjacent to downtown. We want to make sure that the right mix of uses and the right density is ultimately achieved. I can't sit here and tell you that it's going to 100% protect the property, but it's the best tool that we have to do that. I don't feel like that at that density somebody would come in and subdivide the property in that way. They would only be able to get about 50 lots, and even if they did, the board would have the ability to review a major subdivision of that sort. The planning board met and they did make a unanimous recommendation 7-0 to recommend the property initially zoned R1. And staff, of course, recommends that, as I mentioned at the public hearing. It would be an initial zoning to establish the R1 single-family residential district, and therefore no conditions can be placed on the approval. So the board's options are a motion to approve the petition as presented, or a motion to deny the petition as presented. And staff's proposed reasonableness and consistency statement would read that the zoning request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and future planning goals of the town of Waxhaw, but is reasonable and in the public interest as it establishes initial zoning on a parcel recently annexed as required by state law and preserves the property by applying a very low-density residential district while determining the highest and best use for the parcels in the future. I'll certainly be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Why don't you flip back to the motion, just so we have it. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Wells? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Well, I just want to make a statement. As much as, I would have liked to have seen us do a mixed-use designation there. There's just not enough written in our UDO currently to protect that land and design it the way that's meant for such an important piece of property. And so I want to thank you for making that the suggestion of this R1 zoning to protect the property until we can redo the UDO and make sure that our mixed-use designation fits what's best for the town. So I will make a motion to approve RZ 009395, 2019 as presented.
We have a motion to approve. Does anybody want to have further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it 5-0. You want to put up the reasonableness and consistency so we can do that?
Oh, sure.
Matt
I
jumped
think
ahead of you.
Yep, he sure did. Here, I can go back to it.
And Commissioner Westlake, would you like to make the motion for reasonableness and consistency?
Which one is that, the top?
The top one.
The top one
Okay,
makes
the zoning
sense.
request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and future planning goals of the town of Waxhaw, but is reasonable and in the public interest as it is establishes initial zoning on a parcel recently annexed as required by state law and preserves the property by applying a very low-density residential district while determining the highest and best use for the parcels in the future.
So we have a motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of this reasonableness and consistency statement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 5-0. Thank you very much, Jeff, and thanks for shepherding that through.
Thank you.
Next item, follow-up from the October 8th work session on the Town of Waxhaw classification and pay plans. Ms. Wendy Davenport, we have a list of recommendations that were presented in both the executive summary and in the presentation. I think there was an adjustment, small adjustment of
Yes.
3,500 or so bucks on
Less than
the
that,
cost, but this is something that the board made a very specific request at the budget season to come to do the work. When he was working with Susan, got the work done, and we're here to take action. So do you want to add anything?
I just said it was less than that. It's actually $3,563 difference from the presentation that you saw on the 8th. So I just want to make sure I clarified that. And just waiting for...
She frightened me today. She said 3563, and I'm going, 35,000 and what?
So, yes, we're just here today to get your decision and see if you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Wendy? Would anybody like to make the motion?
I'm happy to make the motion. I make a motion to approve the attached Town of Waxhaw classification and pay plan, which includes the changes in the salary ranges and job classifications as recommended in the recent study conducted by the HR consultant and presented to the Town of Waxhaw on October 8th, 2019, and to authorize the town manager to implement employee salary range increases effective November the 1st, 2019, within the currently approved town budget FY 2020. Employee salary increases include recommended job reclassifications, bringing employee salaries to the minimum of the new salary ranges, and making market adjustments for employees whose salaries were above the minimum but below the market of their salary range within their classifications.
We have a motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 5-0. Thank you very much,
Thank
Wendy.
you. Thank you all for following through on that and allowing us to be brought up to date.
And put it in your tickler file that we do that, should be doing that every 2 to 3 years as recommended by...
In this current market, yes.
Yeah, in this current market, so thank you. Next item up, around the executive search firm contract for the town manager. The first item up is to actually, this board met on October 15th and 17th. We actually went through 10, not yet, Nick, with that. We actually went through We received 10 RFPs. We narrowed it down to 3 for interviews. On October 15th and 17th, we actually conducted the interviews, and we selected Development Associates as the executive search firm to facilitate the search for town manager. So the first item we have to do is award the contract.
Yes, sir.
So who would like to make that motion?
I'm happy to make that motion as well. I'd like to make the motion to authorize the interim town manager to enter into a contract with Developmental Associates.
A motion, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, they would like to get started next week, and they need a board contact, preferably from one of the 3 that are not rolling off. So I know Mayor Pro Tem McMillan, you've expressed a desire, and you started this. So would you like to continue this?
I would.
Okay. We don't need to vote on that. We just need consensus. I will get Steve the name. He's expecting a name, and then he will communicate directly with you to get a schedule going, and they want to start next week, so.
That's fine.
Okay?
All right.
All right. Thank you, Wendy,
Thank you.
on that, too. All right, Nick, and you want to give me the clicker? Please, please. So next item up is some clarification on the CIP, and Interim Manager Smith asked me to just discuss this with the board because he needs some clarification. It's not about anything into knee-deep studies on the CIP, but he wants some clarification because in the 2x2 meetings he's gotten confusing or differing pieces of information. So first one up was body cameras. Back in January 2019, body cameras was first discussed at the director level. It was never brought policy-wise or decision-wise to the board whatsoever. It was all done at a financial level. That initial guesstimate, and I guess we'll leave it at that because it was what was available was roughly $31K. When Erskine and Mr. Smith came in, he went to every department head and asked what your needs. The number one need from the police department was body cameras. When he presented the body camera CIP component, he had estimated 50K fiscal year 2020, 50K 2021. In the 2x2 meetings, some of the board members said, let's commit to the program. Let's understand let's get the commitment to the implementation going now, covered all in fiscal year 2020. And again, understand what a capital improvement request is. It's really a 5-year projection. And so that range, which my understanding is Chief working with IT has gotten out and gotten 6 different options, ranges anywhere from $90,000 over that 5-year period to $170,000. They've worked with the league to make sure that they understand the steps that you have to go through to get the ball rolling on that. It's a long process. The reason Erskine is asking for clarification is because it is a long process. It's policy, it's procedure, it's risk assessment with the league because they cover our liability and insurance and its potential insurance discounts if done right. The expenditure probably would not come until the end of this fiscal year and the beginning of next fiscal year and beyond. But the request from Erskine, from Mr. Smith, was, does the board want to move ahead with body cameras and authorize the manager to begin looking at an apportionment up to potentially $170,000 so they can get the work and bring it back to the board. It's just a clarification question on his part. It's a consensus. The apportionment would have to come back to the board, but he doesn't want to expend a lot of time looking at this stuff if we're not committed to it. So I throw it to the board to understand what the consensus is.
I think we do want to go, at least I want to go forward with it. I
Okay.
feel that cameras support, they keep our police safer, they keep our citizens safer, and they protect the town.
I agree.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, let's just go around the table. Are you support?
Yes.
Okay.
I support the body cameras. The only question I have, I know there are some grants out there, such as the Bureau of Justice Assistance offered grants in 2019. There's an act in Congress right now to authorize a grant program for the body camera. So I'm just want to make sure that we are applying for grants that are available, and just like we asked the Parks and Rec to look for grants that we as well can.
So one of the requirements, because I sit on the insurance board as the chair, one of the requirements is if you want to apply for a grant, you have your policies and procedures in place, and you get inspected from a risk standpoint. And that's why Erskine is asking for, if we're serious, let's do the work, we'll commit to the work, and that work will enable us to apply for grants. My understanding is the grants come due at least from the league, I know, and I think from the federal, in a seasonal, as you begin the next budget year. So the grants would come due in the May, June timeframe. Do I have that right? Okay. So the reason Mr. Smith is asking for this is they can start the work now to go after the grants. So
That was the only
Yeah.
thing that I wanted to make sure,
That's
that
a
we
fair
are
question.
looking into these other sources.
Yeah. And the other thing, and that, along with that, should we not conform to the policies and procedures that our insurance carrier provides, we then get an increase in insurance. So there's incentives all the way around here. So on that. Commissioner Burns?
Yes, I'm in agreement to move forward. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. So that's unanimous from the board to move forward, and we'll pass that on to Erskine, and Chief, get to work. So on that.
I have one question. Do we have the insurance guidelines that we can use to start with?
Yeah,
Okay.
they have them, and they have sent them down to us on that.
Thank you.
Next item on the CIP clarification from Mr. Smith was the 34-acre Waxhaw Marvin property. There was no initial recommendation other than the park master plan in the 2x2s, and in other conversation, there has been a request can we get initial sizing for what it would take to even open that property up as a park. The considerations that Mr. Smith brought forward, the resolution suspending the park and land development is expired. It expired December 2018.
I thought we removed that when we passed it. I thought we removed
It actually expired December 2018. The way the resolution was written was the resolution was in effect until December 2018 or the completion of the Park and Rec Master Plan, whichever occurred first, and December happened before the plan was completed. There's been an expression from some to sell the property. Mr. Smith's comment was rather than try to do these things in a independent way, perhaps with input, the board could make a more of a balanced decision by having some of that information. Yet he does not want to begin the work because it costs time. It takes time, talent, and treasure. And so he wanted to make sure that this is something the board wants wants him to have staff dedicate some time to bring some sizing and estimates as to and kind of a timeline as to how to what it would take to put that land as a park. So those were his two items that he wanted me to bring forward. So on this, let's go around the table on this one again. So Mayor Pro Tem, you want to start?
I just have a question regarding that. Isn't this now covered under the park master plan that we have, where they will be designing and bringing forth information regarding the green space or areas that we consider parks, and bringing that information to the board?
There's no timeline on it. And
Okay,
so
but-
it was requested, and so he's saying, do you want me to do the work now? That's what he's asking.
But I'm just trying to understand, if we have the park master plan and that is part of the park master plan that they are working on and working with, isn't that part of Dina and the park people, their job to do that and bring that information? Why is it something that is now?
Because it's been brought up in the 2x2s as something to discuss, and so the question is, do you want it?
I think it's part of the park master plan, and we have that already there. We have people who are heading up the park master plan. They're supposed to be bringing that information to us to let us know, how they're designing, what is needed, how much it's going to cost, and all of that information. So with the park master plan, it's already there.
No, it isn't timeline. That's
But
why
it's
he's...
not timeline,
Hang on a second.
but it
Let
is
me
there.
finish, please. It's not timelined. Just like everything else in the 2x2s, the discussion came up. It's not Mr. Smith's position nor job to try to gain consensus of the board. He's asked us, if he would have been here, just said, I'm not going to dedicate resources to go and build a plan if the board isn't unified or has consensus on it. That's
Okay.
all. So
I understand.
That's all.
But I understand what you're saying, and I understand what he's asking. But I also understand that it's also part of the park master plan. So even though it's not timelined.
yeah.
in the
Do you
park
want to
plan-
do it now is the question.
No.
Okay. Simple question.
I have to agree with Mayor Pro Tem McMillan. That wasn't even on this agenda. This is the first I'm hearing about it and seeing this right here, so.
I don't know what you mean by
As
agenda.
far as the CIP clarification, when he did the presentation, that was never mentioned on there. It's not been on the agenda. This is the first
Yes.
I've seen it. And so there's been I haven't even had time to think about this, but I agree that we have a park master plan. The Parks and Rec Department came and presented what they felt were their goals. This was not one of their goals. So at this time.
So no, the park is one of the goals in the plan. It wasn't a surprise. It's come up in the 2x2s. Mr. Smith just asked for it to be discussed. There's no surprises here. Guys, this is what.
I wasn't in that 2x2.
Quiet.
I don't
Please,
need
just
to be quiet.
No, let me
I have
finish.
an opportunity
Let
to
me
speak.
finish and I will recognize you. Mr. Smith is asking for this board to just discuss it and deliberate it. That's the essence of the council manager form of government. That's all he's asking for. And if you want more information, that's a perfectly acceptable answer. But he's made a request. I support him getting the request for clarity, so you don't want it
But the
done now.
request was not sent to this board member before this meeting right here. So
Yeah,
this
I
is
know
the
it.
first I've heard about it, so I'm going to say no. I think that's something that we can maybe pass on to the next board to discuss. That's my opinion.
Commissioner Burns.
This park land or inventory has been paid for 7 years ago, $1.5 million, and it's had a lock on the gate. We don't have green space. It's not in the master park plan for us to sell this property. It's parkland inventory. So I agree for you to go back to tell Erskine that I would like to move forward for them, Dina and the park, to bring back the numbers to see what the minimum is to open the park.
The reality is, any decision on that would be the next board anyway. I mean, that's the reality of it. So they're just trying to do we want to do the work? Commissioner Lee, and then we'll come back.
Absolutely, we should do the work. The land has sat there for, 7 years now, and people have been begging for a passive park. And I think it's time that we give the people what they've been asking for.
So I'm not asking for a support of Mr. Smith is not asking for
All right,
support
he
of the
has
park.
to do the work now.
It's just,
I would like
do you
to
want to
see
do
it
the
done
work?
sooner
Yeah.
rather than later.
Okay.
I would also like to see the work progress. Taking a look at the 5-year capital improvement plan, we do have funding allocated for the Waxhaw Marvin Road property. I, for one, would like to see the lock cut off the gate. I think that we don't have a lot of opportunity for green space in Waxhaw, and 34 acres of green space for the citizens of Waxhaw is a positive thing for the community. Therefore, I would like to see it move forward.
So let's be clear. All Mr. Smith is asking for is, do you want him and his staff to do the work? There is no guarantee that there's money to open the park or anything like that. He's just asking for permission to do the work. That's
Does
all.
that cost money?
Huh?
To do the work?
Absolutely it does, because you have to look at and build and engage with a planner to look at it. That's
So-
why he's asking.
And when the survey was done, if I recall, the most requested item on the Parks and Rec plan was greenways and trails, and instead, we want to spend money to open a passive park.
No,
That's not
no,
what he said.
that's not what I said. Do
But
we want to spend money?
To see how much.
Hang on a second. Let's not put words into Mr. Smith's mouth. He's just asking for direction. Do you want him to have staff work on a plan? That's all. It will take a couple of months to do the plan. It would come before the next board. All the worries about the splits of the board and all that stuff, he's asking, would we be adult and actually make a decision in a consensus way Do we want to start looking at a plan? He's not going to take it any further at all.
So I believe in his manager's report from 2 weeks ago, he outlined that the request was made to understand what would the initial
Right.
funding needed be in order to move forward with the project. So I think what he's asking us is, do we consent to find out, to take the step to find out what those initial costs would be so that we have an understanding of what those cost estimates are?
Right,
You're
that's what
right.
he said, that's what he said in the email, and he additionally said that the approximate cost to do that or to open it would be $1.8 million, if I read it correctly. Now, I understand that the green space in the park, and that is important. Nobody's taking that away. The space has been there for a number of years, as well as other green spaces in this town, even in the downtown area where parks have not been completed, work has not been completed, and there are other green areas as well. I understand all of that. So still, with that knowledge and the information that it would cost to even try to attempt to do something with that park area when we still have other green space area that's been sitting there longer than the 7 years that this has been sitting there, I think that it's still a part of the park master plan that they can come back. So once again, I understand he's asking for direction, and that he's just asking to look for the ability to work out and get the numbers to see how much it costs. But I think that we have other things that we can direct those costs and expenses to right now with the town than to look at that when we can still work that out through the park master plan and Dina, who heads that.
Agree.
So, Matt, if you would take back to him that the board is divided, that it's roughly 3-2 to build an initial plan, to find out what an initial plan was. He recognized that the 1.5 was not a realistic number to open it. That's why he asked the question. He had communicated to everybody on the board, so we're all aware of that, of the issue coming up. But take it back and
Absolutely.
let him sort through that. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Thank you. All right, next item up, new business item H1, we added to it. Okay, board and discussion item, boards and commissions onboarding. We have a duty as the town board to bring on board our boards and commissions. We got 20-plus people joining the 1st of October. Historically, it's been done by 2 board members since 2015. When then Commissioner Mike Stewart and I took the then boards through it. We have as a standard that we conduct it within 60 days. We have a standard that every board and commission member is required to attend after appointment or reappointment, and we have a standard that attendance signifies acknowledgement of the town of ethics and conduct standards. The content that we've done and have continued to iterate on is what's up there. I passed on a suggestion to the board that it's inappropriate for me to continue to do it since I will be departing, but nonetheless, as Clerk Schuler reminded me, we have to get it done. She is overloaded with Kelly gone and has enough on her plate. She has to get, for instance, all of the minutes out and to us for this board to sign off on all of our work before December 10th in the transition. And so she was asking what the game plan is. I made a suggestion that Mayor Pro Tem McMillan and Commissioner Lee accept it. There are 2 that are going to be on the board. Both acknowledged positively. Commissioner Westlake said it's unacceptable, so I don't know what's unacceptable. So
Who has been serving with you, I'm sorry, doing that with you since Mike Stewart has been
it
on?
was Mike, it was John Hunt, it was Commissioner Burns, Commissioner Burl helped at one point. Last year it was Kelly that helped because we're doing so much transition with the boards. The rules of procedure for each of the boards that Commissioner Lee worked on and brought back to us. So it's been passed around kind of like that. And so
So I agree that Mayor Pro Tem McMillan since you're saying that you would no longer be taking this on until your term is up, I guess is what you're saying.
No,
You just wanted to.
typically what you do is you educate and then there's follow-on questions.
Okay.
I don't plan to answer any questions for a board member
Okay.
Christmas Day. I'll be long gone.
Okay,
So
so.
I'm
Mayor
just trying to
Pro Tem,
make light of it.
Stepping
'Cause-
into your spot obviously makes sense to me, but I'm wondering why the new mayor wouldn't take on that second position. Or I guess we
Because-
change that after
No,
the new board.
well, because we need to do it now. If you wait for the new person to come on board, it'll be January, and the board will have completed, the boards and commissions will complete a month of work. When the new board has the time to put together their assignments and how they want to work and all that stuff, which is part of the organizational part, have at it. My concern is 60 days of appointment gets us to the end of November. We need to get the work done and bring them on board, make sure they understand that's not that hard of work. All of us should know all that stuff. We should know it cold. It's a matter of updating the templates and any tweaks to the rules and procedures. I just tried to line two people up.
So it's one meeting, and you just didn't want to do that before your term's up, so you're saying.
No, it isn't one meeting. It's actually updating the material. It's vetting the material. It's actually taking the time to schedule not only one meeting, but it's usually three, because not everybody can make it. It's usually patterned with two people, because people ask questions, and they're more comfortable with some people than another. You're on call, so they ask the question. I'm not sure who you're looking at on that, but that's how that works. That's how that works.
Okay, so, yeah, that's fine, and then when the new mayor's sat on, then so he can.
So I don't know what's fine. The recommendation was McMillan and Lee. Are we comfortable with that?
Sure.
I am. I think it's a
am.
great idea.
Yeah, I mean, okay. It's not that hard. Okay, thank you. All right. We have nobody signed up for general public comments. We'll go to staff leadership reports.
Okay, we do have a number of leadership reports, and we'll see, based on what Nick's got loaded up, who's first? Dina?
Good evening.
Just tell us your story.
Deep breath.
Come on.
Zen moment. We're all good. Oh, you still have the clicker. Okie dokie. Again, we're going to highlight some of our community programs. Our outdoor yoga and outdoor conditioning is doing great. We've got great feedback. Actually looking to extend it into November if the weather holds out for us. And they're really excited about spring and summer. We had our self-defense team program last night. We had, I think, over 6 participants to learn about how to take care of themselves, which is something, our social programs is where we're trying to hit at the most, especially for our safety of our kids. We have a new program, Mind, Body, and Emotional Wellness for our adults. And then we're also having stranger safety with Officer Vic. So our community officers are awesome. So we appreciate what they do, but they also give back with us having that youth program, and we're able to give that to the community. Senior Coffee, we're having the Mind, Body, and Wellness class for them at our monthly senior. And then we're having a new program, Create an Ornament at 8 Legs. They are a wonderful community partner, and we're doing that in mid-November. Fright night, this weekend. So Halloween is one of my favorite times of the year. Got my little ghosty earrings on and my Sally socks. But this is a great community builder, and staff helps out tremendously. You actually see Miss Wendy in there. She's helping out again this year. just to highlight what's going on. So trick-or-treating starts at our wonderful businesses downtown. We have over 30 businesses that's going to participate this year, and some churches coming in for trick-or-treat. So it's going to go for 3 hours. So it's up and down 75 and South Main. So it's both sides of the street. We have our wonderful officers helping us cross. We have a holiday contest. The little ones start off, and then it goes into the adult. The Haunted Maze is, I'm in charge of decorating, so it's going to be spooky for that first hour, and then it's going to be scary after that, so just be aware. And then we have our adult Halloween party. That's going to be closer to the brewery where our tree stage platform area is. Also, Mr. Nigel, he's a great children's performer. He's going to be out there from 4:30 to 7, helping out with the costume contest and just getting the crowd, revved up for Halloween. So that's going on for Fright Night. Any questions about that? I encourage you to come dress up and come enjoy it with us. Please save the date for Veterans Day. That's November the 11th. That's a Monday at 11 a.m. at the Military Wall. We'll have the tents up like we've done in the past, but it's a wonderful time to remember. Any questions?
I just have a comment regarding the Veterans Day. So Miss Edna Drakeford, she works with Quilts of Valor, and Pam, who's in the audience, is a member of the Quilts of Valor organization, as well as my mother-in-law. And they do such a great service with providing our veterans with a quilt for comfort. And I know that they're always looking for names, so this is me letting you know that you should share your name because they want to care for you and give you the comfort of that quilt. And those are presented on Veterans Day.
On Veterans Day. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is
Jeff.
Jeff.
I like the left side. Thank you again and good evening. I just wanted to give you a quick recap of where we are in our public input for growth strategy moving forward, and then a quick preview of where we're going. And you have a copy of this short presentation there at your places. Back in September on the 26th, we had what we called our Open House 1. It was held from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. over at the Niven Price Building. We designed it as a walk-in, self-guided tour, I guess you could say, with planning staff at each of the stations. Some of the stations were informative only, while others were informative, but also requesting interaction from members of the public that attended. Our records as far as who actually signed up, we had 55 that were recorded as attending, 28 identified from the town, 12 not from the town, and 15 undeclared. Now the actual number, my estimate was about 75 to 80 total, because we did have a number of families as well as some couples that only signed up once, and then we also had some people that refused to sign as well. But for the members of the board that were there, particularly from 5:30 to 8:30, we had a pretty full room there in the Niven Price, which holds a pretty good amount of people. So we were really pleased with the turnout, and of course our purpose was to gather input on strategies for meeting the demands of growth using displays, surveys, and interactive maps. We were basically using the theme of living, working, shopping, and playing in Waxhaw. And we also had an online survey that is still open, and to this point has 92 responses. So, and I know everybody cannot read this. If you come on Thursday night, you will be able to read this, because this will be one of the posters that will be up from the results. But this is the combined results so far from the people that filled out this survey at the first public input session, as well as online. And what we asked of people is what do you want in Waxhaw, and gave them a lot of different choices. And then, of course, having the option to write in anything else that they would like to see. The top 3 answers were restaurants, specialty shops, and professional office space. And of course, there was a number of other uses that go down the line from that. Next, we not only asked what types of development that they wanted to see moving forward, but where. And this was a map. This was the kind of the culmination of the first open house. We had pins that we gave out to people with the colors for the yellow for live, blue for shop, red for work, and green for play, and to place those in areas where they thought would be appropriate in the town. We did give them some guidance. We said they could put them anywhere, but we wanted to see what their thoughts were for our concept of our downtown economic zone, as well as our economic zones or employment center areas, as well as our neighborhood center concepts. And what you see here is the result of that. Also, the online survey captured that in one question. The last question on the survey is, where do you want to see new developments in Waxhaw? And the largest response went to neighborhood centers, which were described as the prominent intersections within walkable reach of existing neighborhoods. Some of these smaller dots along the corridor, and the large undeveloped tracts represented the economic zones. Here, these 2 areas along Waxhaw Parkway East, as we would call that, and along Highway 75, and then a smaller area off of Cuthbertson Road. So, as you see, not only did they answer with neighborhood centers, downtown, and the large undeveloped tracts as 1, 2, 3, but most of the pins were within those areas too. And of course, there's still a lot of analysis to be done from that based on the additional input that we will receive moving forward. But so far, I'm very pleased with the results, because the sample size that we have is people do support this concept moving forward. So where that takes us will be this Thursday, same location, same time, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., and it'll be designed in the same fashion as the first open house. Come whenever you can, if you can make it. It'll be a self-guided tour through. Planning staff will be there to host the various stations, and what we'll be doing is we'll be reviewing this that you got the quick review of. All those results will be there. We also are going to explore and prioritize other issues that were brought up, things that were brought up during the meeting. We want to ask the public to prioritize those issues and concerns, and perhaps give us some good solutions. We'd love to hear what people's thoughts are on that, as well as reviewing what we would call a revised strategic planning areas or land use study map. And right now, this is, of course, still very much in draft form, but this is revised so far based on the input that we have gotten to this point. It doesn't look a whole lot different than the original map, but what it has changed is we have reduced the number of neighborhood center areas. From the last map where the pins are, there was not a lot of interest in the southern area of town having those. So we listened to that. We removed that. There was very little interest in having one along Waxhaw Marvin Road, just east of Millbridge. So we removed that one. So far in our conceptual, we want to focus along the corridors, Highway 16, and as well as the gateways, the north one there at Bonds Grove Church, Gray Byram, and as well as a westerly one at Highway 75 at the intersection of where the proposed Waxhaw Parkway would tie in. So, as I said, we'd love to have the board as well as the public come out, and we look forward to seeing everybody there who can come. And we will, after that meeting, we'll compile those results, and then we'll come back with a full report as well as a full analysis with the goal of moving forward. Thank you very much.
Very good.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the category of other that was rated number 4, what was that designated towards?
Well, we're still compiling that that data, but it was just a number of uses and things that were not necessarily listed listed on there. I mean, they could have included manufactured home parts, for instance, a number of them where we don't want to see anything else here in town was a number of those. So that's what some of the other entails.
Okay, and then how long is the online survey available for all the citizens of town?
This particular online survey will look to close out at the end of the week, and we are exploring the option of opening up another online survey based on a station that we will have on Thursday, as I mentioned before, asking people to prioritize some of the issues that they've brought up concerning transportation or keeping the small character of town, for example. We want to get that interaction from them as to what they prioritize and then what potential solutions that they may have. And we would anticipate opening that up probably the following week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next I'm going to guess Kurt. Right.
Okay, good evening. I'm just going to provide 3 updates, all downtown related. The first is the downtown vision statement. So the Main Street Advisory Board and staff and the North Carolina Main Street staff held the community forum on September 19th for the Downtown Vision Forum. To kind of reestablish a downtown vision and some economic development strategies for the downtown area specifically. Commissioner DeFinis and Burns were at the last Main Street Advisory Board meeting and were able to kind of witness some of the efforts to consolidate the feedback that was received at that forum. And the suggestion we got from the commissioners was to work with Haven Creative to really kind of try to finesse that vision statement, but even more importantly, to make sure it ties to our existing town vision and mission. So I actually met with Jenny today, and we're going to be working on doing just that. So you'll have an update there in the coming weeks. Secondly, the Waxhaw Marvin Sidewalk. We're happy to say that it is under construction. It rained today, so the construction consisted of just kind of putting some bands around some of the trees that are going to be removed as part of it. But it is under construction, it's great because this is a CDBG, so Community Development Block Grant funded project. This is the only thing the town has had to contribute in the way of financial resources is $5,500 for an environmental review. So this is a really great opportunity. It was a lot of coordination with the county to get it to this point, but it is happening now. I just put some numbers here just to show you that we actually are currently we have some wiggle room still in the budget, which is good. The construction contract was let for $157.3. And so, but there is some wiggle room as well. So we're looking good on getting that built for 100% grant funded, and construction begins again today. Will hopefully be completed by December 21st. It could be sooner depending on weather. So, and just for reference, so you can't see, that's Fallondale and Millbridge, Fallondale Drive Road, and then Utah Drive is down here right at Coldwater Mill, which is not showing here yet because it's new. Okay, then the next piece is a little bit of a larger update. So the New East update. New East, of course, the developer who the board selected to enter into a development agreement with the town to redevelop the parcels that were part of the Urban Land Institute report. This is the project area that New East has established in partnership with the town. This is the Niven Price building and parking lot on the left here. I believe you also have this in your packet. This is Duncan McDonald house parcel, Waxhaw Water Tower, and Community Corner. Now, just for clarification purposes, the town, we're of course not selling the Duncan McDonald house and water tower parcels for everyone who may be watching at home. But they are part of a cohesive project area because we want to make sure that it all works together and that it's tied in well so that it functions as one unit, one development project. The preliminary development plan that New East has given us is here, and I neglected to mention, we met with New East and Charlie, the town attorney, a couple weeks ago, just to review the statutory requirements of a development agreement and to establish what questions New East still had for the town, i.e. the Board of Commissioners, in terms of the scope of the project, so that they could really get a solid agreement to us. They're drafting the development agreement now, and hopefully we'll answer some questions tonight that'll help them bring that to fruition. We're hoping to be able to have something, an agreement presented November 25th, and then by November 12th, they'll be able to provide some more numbers for you all. The reason we don't have more numbers right now is because, again,
Just to clarity, I think you did in reverse, but it's a work session on the 12th that you're going to bring stuff back.
Yes, sir.
And then the agreement on the 25th.
That's correct.
Right, okay.
I did it in reverse. But we need to get a couple more questions answered, and we also, the staff's finalizing some of the public improvement costs. The developer's looking at their end as well. But this is the development plan. It's presented. The reason you see the A2 building here circled, and I won't belabor it too much because I know you've got it in front of you, but just to review, when we look at building, this is the Nevin Price building, of course, where the developer proposes retail and restaurant on the bottom floor, Class A office on the second floor. The town retains ownership of the parking lot here. Developer builds a retail out parcel here, building B. Building A1 is a mixed-use, 14,000 square foot building with ground floor is restaurant retail, upper floor is our Class A office space. The building A2 here is the developer originally proposed a 21,000 square foot building where the ground floor is retail and the upper floor is approximately 20 small residential studio units. And then from the town's contribution to the project would be the North Church Street improvements, West North Main Street improvements, so streetscape, sidewalk, basically infrastructure, additional improvements too that may be needed to help facilitate events being held on those streets, including the water tower plaza. That's in a nutshell what was originally proposed. The reason I have A2 circled here is because in some of the 2x2 meetings with the board, I understand there's some concern with the residential piece of the project. That the developer has proposed the part of this building be residential. The developer is open to scaling that back and not doing the residential piece. But what it would be most likely to happen is that they would just not do that building at all. There's concern that the Waxhaw market could absorb 26,000 square feet of office, which would be the total for the whole project area here. 26,000 square feet of Class A office it would be a stretch. It could potentially require them, it would require them to charge leases that were above market to recoup the cost of an office scale building. It's more expensive to build an office building. It's 50% more expensive versus residential. And secondly, it affects their ability to get financing because it's a lot easier for the developer to get financing for residential. They don't have to pre-lease it, and it pays for itself on almost day one. So they're open to not having the residential piece, but what that would likely mean is then there would be no building A2. You would still have office in A1 and Niven Price. You still have retail restaurant. Those two would still be on the table in building B.
So just a point of clarity, what you're saying they are alluding to is that the town of Waxhaw does not, the numbers are not showing that it has the capacity for that much additional downtown office space.
When you say the town of Waxhaw, do you mean the
Not town, us, but they don't see in the market.
The Waxhaw submarket.
Market, the ability to fill that much office space downtown. They don't see that demand.
What they're saying is if it was there, it would already be here. Or you'd be seeing more movement in that direction, and we're not seeing that. And to to build those, the town would have to pre-lease a significant portion of the development at $25 a square foot, which, to give you perspective, we're currently at 15 per square foot in downtown. So it'd be a significant, it'd be above market.
Above market, yeah.
To make that work. So that's what I can say about that. So the question is, and this is what I alluded to, as to why we were still trying to get some numbers worked up, is if the board says let's just do the residential as originally proposed here, again it'd be only upper floor residential, retail underneath, then that's one direction. If the board says we really just we're not comfortable with the residential piece, then we would then go back to New East and ask them to draft the agreement with building A1, Niven Price, building B, but no building A2. I will point out that that is similar to what ULI originally proposed. I think that's important to note. So that's what I would ask for the board's direction on. Or certainly before the, if we want to be able to get an agreement drafted before the end of the year, we need to get those numbers together pretty quickly.
So I have a couple of questions. My first question would be, according to the survey that we just received from Mr. Wells, as well as the downtown economic study and session that we had with the Main Street team, they said that we were looking for spaces for professional offices, that we needed to be able to give life services to the citizens of Waxhaw. So with that being said, I'm unclear as to, besides the economics, as to why they don't think that professional offices would do well, considering that's something that was covered in the Main Street Economic Summit, as well as something that is denoted here in the planning study that Mr. Wells just provided to us in the survey feedback. I would like to have a clearer understanding from New East associated to A2 of how many residential units would be a part of the upper floors, and then if it was office space, how many office spaces would be a part of that as well. And for me, I really need to see the numbers, Kurt. I need to understand what our fiscal responsibility would be in this deal to be able to make a really clear discernment of how we move forward with this contract.
So a couple things there. While the community might support the need for more office, and I get calls for office space, there's a difference between a $15 per square foot office space, which is currently what downtown office rents are at, versus building a net new construction in an historic downtown with our downtown code, with the architectural standards that would be required, with the old infrastructure and the unknowns that would cause the rents to be at such a place where they don't believe there's a market for $25 a square foot. Those are Blakeney prices. I mean, so I think that's why. It's not that Waxhaw doesn't need more office, it's just at this location, they're not able to make the numbers work. Sorry.
So with not making the numbers work, if it was agreed that approximately 20 small residential studio units, which is what you stated, would be on the second floor, that then would reduce the cost and allow them to be able to move forward with that building and space and keeping the costs down, still having the ground floor as retail and restaurant, and the top floor would then offset that cost and bringing it back down to the 15 as opposed to the 25?
They would, having the residential, as originally proposed, it works. It's the quantity of office space at that rate, first of all. So the 26,000 square foot of office at $25, they don't believe there's a market for that. But in addition to that, it's also more expensive to build an office building than a residential building. So it also increases the price of the building in addition to the rents. So that's why the residential piece makes it more doable, both on the front end from their initial capital investment, and then for their ability to get financing.
Financing
Yeah.
from the back end.
Yeah.
The bigger piece.
And yeah, exactly. And Commissioner, to finish regarding the numbers, that's what we're trying to. That's why we need to have these questions answered. They can't. We have the numbers pretty well established now for the public improvements piece of it, but there was a couple unknowns still. From our end, does the board want to do the Water Tower Plaza, for example, and then on New East End, until we tell them what kind of building we want, they can't give us numbers. So that's why we need to get these answers.
So is there a possibility to receive what we believe our cost would be with the water tower and without the water tower, so that we have an idea of what we're looking at?
We could give you just estimates of what our costs would be.
That would be great, thank you.
Kurt, on A1, if we don't do A2, A1 would be larger, correct?
No, A1 would stay the same.
Stay the same?
Yes.
And the rest would be parking?
Yes.
So how many spaces on retail over behind Niven's Price, how many parking spaces does that take up? What is the square footage of that building?
The building, I think.
Could you flip back to the one that shows A1, A2?
Oh, yeah, it'd be bigger, yeah. Yes, A1, A2. This building here was proposed as a 1,500 square foot footprint.
1,500?
Yeah, so it's pretty small.
Yeah.
And if you look between right now, church, or between McDonald and the exit of the parking lot, what is that, 10 spaces? Matt, we just did that parking lot. I don't know if Matt might remember, but.
The angular parking, correct?
Right. No, this is within the parking lot.
Okay.
That this building would be. These are on street here. So, any other questions?
For our opinions here tonight, or can we get those back to you by a certain day, or what's going on here?
The sooner we can get that information, the more likely it is to have an agreement drafted before the end of the year. So I realize it's something that we found out relatively well. We found out just within the past couple of days about that caveat option to us about just not doing the building. So
My understanding is from Manager Smith that he wants to have a work session on the first meeting in November.
the 12th.
The 12th, to talk through at greater detail some of this stuff, because you've been trying to do it in the 2x2s, and
Yep.
with all due respect to everybody else, Mayor Pro Tem McMillan and I haven't had this, so this is all,
This is new.
this is truly new to us.
Sure.
So I don't have any backdrop, nor does Mayor Pro Tem, in terms of what you've talked about in terms of the infrastructure and all of that. I certainly understand in talking with other people why they are saying the office space. It's expensive to build office space in downtown. Doesn't mean that you can't put it elsewhere, but it's expensive. And you implied the town would have to lease, which could be an answer, even though an expensive one, to town hall. And that, and you kind of flip your thinking around a little bit. Is that something that you want to put in the hopper for the next board to consider? Because like it or not, the next board's going to have to consider where are we going to house people. We're breaking at the seams as it is today. So, and that's for a longer deliberation, I think, on the 12th, personally. I don't have a clue as to what the market is for studio apartments, though. I mean, so that's information that we don't have either, so.
So between now and the 12th, we can get we can get more, we can have estimates on the public side of the improvements. That's not as big of a variable, but I guess we would just have to go get, maybe see if we could get two alternatives from New East here. But if I heard tonight that the board said no way on residential, then that answers that question. But if we're not there yet, then I understand that as well.
It's hard to rule it out without knowing what they mean by studio.
Sure.
The other thing, are you asking us of the 1.6, 1.7 million that is the combined purchase price, how much the town of Waxhaw would like to have back, i.e., what's our limit on our contribution? Are you asking that as well? Or are we there yet?
Well, that
impacts this, I would imagine.
It does, and that would be helpful for us to know. We with this, without going too much into it, with the original proposal, it's not. It seems very feasible to have several hundred thousand at the end of the day. I don't know what removing Building A2 does to that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because if that flips it into parking, that changes the dynamic.
Changes the value of the property for the developer.
That's right.
So, we'll just get back to the board with the public improvements between now and the 12th, and just try to go more in depth on the 12th then.
Is there any way that we can model the numbers, Kurt, to have an understanding of with the public improvements and with or without the building, if we could have a model of the numbers and then have an understanding of what the town would seek to get back and what in order to see how the different variables of the deal fall into place? That's what I asked for very clearly in my 2x2, was understanding our economics of what we will be paying into this deal and then what the town of Waxhaw will be seeing back into this treasury. And having an understanding and an impact associated to the building A2, we need to see how that works with and without and be able to see those numbers so that we can make an educated decision.
I agree partially, but I think it would help Kurt if, as a board, even if we get back to you individually, we give him some guidepost as to minimum that we expect back. I mean, if the board has an attitude that, hey, we'll invest it all back in, that puts a different variable for you guys to negotiate on. Or if we say we'll invest up to half of the purchase price in infrastructure, that's a different variable as well. So I would encourage all of us to maybe think that one through and funnel that back to Kurt this week, because right now he's got a variable from 0 to 1.7 or $1 to 1.7. So help.
That comment that you're making, Mayor, that'll be a part of the actual negotiation with the final development agreement.
Right.
Where you have the numbers and he has his numbers, we'll have our numbers. But also, you've got to factor into this, like building A1 there. That's the long.
The long one's A2.
Well, if they don't build that, that's going to remain public property. So that stays off the tax rolls. So you've got to figure into this thing, not only the actual cash, but you've got to figure the long-term benefit in terms of perpetuity cash flow into the town from ad valorem taxes that would be developed. So, I mean, you've got a lot of considerations here. It's more than just the net cash out of the building. It is, what is it going to do for the entire development of downtown Waxhaw, but what is it going to do to put more ad valorem taxes? And then whatever future triggers that it does, that all becomes new ad valorem taxes to the town as well, in addition to being a destination spot for the rest of the world to come to Waxhaw. It also becomes new ad valorem taxes. So, I mean, you've just got to really think this thing through on what you want to net, because net is not only this building, but net is what is it you want Waxhaw to look like, and what is it that Waxhaw will net in perpetuity.
Should be fun on the 12th.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks, Kurt. Then one last one, leadership from me, and it's, if you like surprises, it's a doozy. To follow up on all the previous DA funding opportunities, a lot of changes have come to light in a totally different arena. Some of the information you're aware of in previous 2x2s, and some of it's going to be completely new. But as the Howie property has been annexed into the town, and we have planning authority over it, a number of things have lined up with this open period for funding that I wanted to bring forward. Again, that period ends on the 31st. There will not be another board meeting before that, but I think the information is valuable enough to consider and have you guys be aware of. The beginning of the narrative is that we know the widening for 16 is going to happen, say, 2027, and then it stops. Nothing is going to happen south of Waxhaw Parkway proper in terms of improvements in traffic capacity. We also know that from the rail division and working with CSX on the siding at Torrey Path on the west side of town, they have funded a grade-separated crossover of the railroad tracks and 75 so that traffic from Helms Road ostensibly can get over the tracks and onto 75 unencumbered. And then that will lead to the closing of those at-grade crossings. So we've got two pieces of the puzzle on the northwest section of the parkway already planned and funded. Now we have this missing link in between, and the one thing that you may not know is the existing parkway on the west side is not designed to DOT standards, and they will not accept that road. What it also means is we can't submit any request for funding to complete that portion because it has to be designed to federal money requires NCDOT standards and for them to maintain, and that's out of the question at this point. So what I've been able to do, and I apologize for the lateness, but I only found out from CRTPO on Friday that they were game for this possibility. I found out from NCDOT yesterday, and I found out from the property owner today that we could seek funding for planning level funds to contemplate a new alignment for the parkway through the Howie parcel. And that has a good probability of being accepted because both DOT, CRTPO support it. It's also favorable to the Howie property because it helps take a burden of that cost off them and their development. And so what I'm proposing is to have another submittal for planning funds for this leg, and it's so preliminary I wouldn't even bring up a map and say what it is. Basically, it would start at 16 and it would end at Waxhaw Marvin Road in line with the widening and then the grade separated crossings so that all those fit into a cohesive functional unit. But all the details are really what the planning design would bring to light. And so the request is the permission to go ahead and submit the application on the 31st. We would get finance to ensure that the funds are going to be there. It's probably under $200,000 total cost, so the 20% match is $40,000 max. Likely to be lower when we finish the details of what the scope and that estimate for the planning concept is. And then we would just attach a rider to the application that says the board would provide a resolution at the earliest possible board meeting after that. Again, whatever reports I can get to you and questions I can answer in the meantime, I'm certainly able to do. If there's an ability for a work session or further 2x2s before the October 31st deadline, I'm open to that. But it's too good an opportunity. We won't get another opportunity like this until next year at this time. The northeast section is already on prioritization for the STIP, and hopefully we'll find out whether that gets funded. But if we can move this forward and nobody else is doing this for us, then it's a means to kind of take it into our own hands and try and get some progress in that direction.
And what's unique about this is it's all within Waxhaw.
It is,
We
so,
control
yeah.
our own destiny.
Yeah, completely opposite of the parkway on the east section.
Right.
We do have the ability to bring this home.
I also think this could influence the planning efforts that you're going to have with the Howies on that property. as well. So I think it's a very wise move on our part. Board? Yeah.
Since we're controlling our own fate and moving forward with this, so.
Right. And this should require less of the contingency buffer since it's planning, I would hope.
Right, and so that'll come out in the details, certainly before, I'll be able to get you the submittal before it goes out, and you can at least look through and be aware of what the final points are. And if there's anything concerning me, I would certainly bring that up at the forefront as new information comes available, as we're doing this a little bit on the fly, and not how I prefer to work, but it's just too good an opportunity to pass up.
I mean, do we want to review what Matt's looking to submit and maybe have a work session on it?
No. He's an engineer. We do not want to get in the middle of the engineer. I didn't mean that so harshly, but
That's okay, no worries.
he is an engineer. We should trust our staff on this one. I
I agree.
I'm happy to move forward then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Belated birthday? No.
Yeah. Try to be nice to me now.
And with that, leadership is concluded.
Okay, thank you. All right, board reports. We'll go reverse alphabetical. Commissioner Westlake?
Nothing tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem McMillan?
Nothing really tonight. Just want to say, this is our last meeting before the election. We have 2 seats that will definitely be open with our mayor and Commissioner DeFinis, 3 seats in total open. But just to thank them, we'll thank them again at a later date for serving in their service. We have a lot on our plate moving forward with the town of Waxhaw coming up in the upcoming years, next year. I do hope that those in the town do come out to vote, that you make an informed decision moving forward with your vote, and understand that we are moving forward in a good direction. We would like to work together with those who are still going to be on the board, with the new board. We have planning issues, we have transportation issues, recreation, parks issues. We have a number of things on our plate. So therefore, when you do go out to vote on November the 5th, please make an informed decision for moving forward for what is in the best interest of the town of Waxhaw as a whole.
Commissioner Lee? Commissioner DeFinis?
No, not at this time.
Commissioner Burns? I have nothing. We have no closed session. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.